All right, so I always like to start with the facts because that's really what got me to using Norwex exclusively to clean my home. I'm not really a chemical-free person in my life. I like Diet Coke. I like brownie mix from a box. I like those things that make my life easier. But once I heard about Norwex, I figured if there was one area in my life that I could become chemical-free, it would be cleaning, because I wasn't attached in any way to cleaning with chemicals. And not to mention, it's a lot faster cleaning with Norwex, so that was an added bonus. So I have 2 small children, and ever since they were born, I started thinking about what I was putting into their bodies. When my son was younger, I started making his baby food, trying to keep him healthy, and I realized that wouldn't last, and so I started buying the baby food in the jars with the least ingredients, and I thought I was doing a good thing for him there, but then I would go ahead and just wipe down his high chair and the table with a Clorox wipe. And I thought I was actually just keeping the area that he was living in clean, but I don't know if you've ever read the back of your Clorox wipes container, but mine said to sanitize, you are supposed to first pre-clean the surface and then use enough fresh wipes to keep the surface thoroughly wet for 30 seconds, and then if the surface comes in contact with food, then you have to rinse thoroughly with water. So those are 3 steps that I wasn't taking. All I was doing was wiping the surface down, and I actually doubt it was staying wet for 30 seconds even. And the reason you have to, wipe it down with water afterwards is because those chemicals are harmful to you if they're ingested. And I was letting my baby, put his food, his Cheerios or whatever, on this clean surface or, this chemical-ridden surface, and then he would eat from that. And I just didn't think about it before. And he also did things like he really liked to chew on my phone. And I know that my phone is a really dirty thing, and so I would Clorox wipe it. Again, like he was just sticking those chemicals right into his mouth and ingesting them, and I didn't think about it. I just kind of figured that the chemicals in the Clorox wipes were okay for us because they were sold to be used in the household, and I figured there had been enough research done on these chemicals, it was okay for us to use in the home. But one fact that I found out is that in the past 50 years, in the 80,000 new chemicals that have been introduced, only 200 of them have been tested for impact on human health. And that's just an incredibly low number for us to be using those chemicals and trusting them in our home. And in my research, I found lists upon lists of chemicals and how they hurt you and how they hurt your body. And I didn't obviously include that in this presentation because it would have made it incredibly long, but if you want to do research on it, just look up chemicals and household cleaning supplies and safety, and you will find so many lists and specifics on how they can hurt you. And also in my studies, I found a scary statistic that stay-at-home moms are 54% more likely to develop cancer in some point in their lifetime. And this was by the National Cancer Association. This isn't just some random statistic. And they didn't say specifically that it's because of the chemicals in the home, but it has to be part of it because we're in the home all day with our kids and we're cleaning the home to keep it clean. Or it's because we're so stressed out as moms. I don't know. But anyway, moving on. I also learned that clean doesn't have a smell. So when you think of your cleaning products, you think of a lemony fresh smell at the end, but that lemony fresh smell is actually a chemical put in to create it smelling lemony fresh. And I found out that a lot of fragrances, most fragrances that aren't natural, can actually be toxic to our health. And feel free to do this research. I included a link on the More Resources page so you can read about toxins. And, I don't know if that's going to stop me from wearing perfume out on dates, but it is good to know and be educated about the chemicals and perfumes that we're using in our homes. So another thing that I used to use all the time was hand sanitizer. I used it on my son's hands, and most recently, the worst thing I did was my little 5-month-old daughter. She really likes to chew on your fingers, and before I found out about Norwex, I thought, well, my fingers are dirty, so I need to put hand sanitizer on first, and then she can chew on him. And now I look back and I realize I was just putting hand sanitizer on and sticking these chemicals into her mouth for her to ingest. And the worst part is that during my studies, I found that on April 30th of this year, 2015, the FDA requested new scientific data on the safety of hand sanitizer because they're finding too much of it in our systems now. And the level they're finding is not safe. So I completely stopped using hand sanitizer, and now I just carry around a travel-sized EnviroCloth with me, and I wipe off my hands and my son's hands and the table. I use it to wipe off everything because these microfiber Norwex cloths don't cross-contaminate. So I know I can use it and it's safe, and I'm just using water to sanitize and not using chemicals. So when I did find out about Norwex and found out that I could clean my house faster using Norwex cloths, I started thinking about all the ways that it does make things faster and more efficient for me. And one thing that I realized was that when you clean with products, with chemical products, the water in the products evaporates off the surface when you're done cleaning, and then the chemical residue is what's left on the surface. And that chemical residue actually attracts dust and grime to it, and it sticks to it, so it actually makes those surfaces dirty faster. The best example that I can think of is the dusting product Pledge. So you spray Pledge on a surface, say your TV stand or something, and then you wipe around and some of the dust flies off and some is picked up, but then there's chemical residue left on the TV stand and more dust is attracted to that and sticks to that, which makes you have to dust more often. Whereas the dusting mitt from Norwex actually magnetically attracts the dust to the mitt and it picks up the dust and holds it in the mitt. It doesn't just move the dust around to a different location. It holds on to it, and then you shake it off outside, and you don't have to dust as often because there's no residue attracting more dust left on your TV stand. So that made me realize that I wouldn't have to clean as often, and I also wouldn't have to use as many products when I cleaned. I could just use the dusting cloth, the window cloth, and the EnviroCloth for 90% of my home. So this research is what made me decide to start using Norwex exclusively to clean my home.